Good afternoon to everyone joining us from the East Coast. Good evening to those of us who are here in Israel. On Saturday morning, on Shabbat morning, I was awakened here in Jerusalem. I'm here for an alum's wedding, to the sound of a siren blaring. And over the subsequent 4 or 5 hours, we had intermittent sirens here in Jerusalem, and I had to head down to our shelter, mostly just an inconvenience. But I wasn't able to make it to synagogue, to shul, for Simchat Torah. Had I been there, I would have heard the conclusion of the final book of the Torah, which concludes with the death of Moses, and then the starting again of the Torah with the book of Genesis, of Bereshit, and creation. So the theme of the holiday of Simchat Torah really is beginning with death and continuing on with creation or recreation. I'm sure there were at least some synagogues here in Israel where they were interrupted after only having finished the Torah and not yet having had a chance to restart. And certainly the felt sense throughout the country was as if we had read death and never moved on to creation. There are, I think, some glimmers of recreation that we're seeing here in Israel, tremendous amount of outpouring of support and love, care for soldiers. There are many WhatsApp groups asking people to help, preparing packages, going to help make minions for Shivas, even to help dig graves for the many funerals that are to come in the coming weeks. I wanted to share with you a couple of personal stories that I've heard just yesterday. Yesterday, I had what I can only call a nightmarish honor to attend 4 consecutive Shivas for people who I did not know. And I promised them that I would share their stories and help us all remember the lives of some of who we lost. One of the houses that I visited was an Ethiopian family, and I don't speak Amharic, so I didn't really learn anything, but I'll share from the other 3. The first is Daniel Vadi. He was killed in the Desert Party, 27 years old, the youngest of 3. As a child, he was adventurous, always happy and loved people, had many, many friends, and that's precisely why he was at that party. For most of the past year, he was living with his sister, who told me that her kids, his nieces and nephews, would jump into his arms when he came out of his room each morning, and they hated to see him leave to go to work. Another was Adir Tahar, 20 years old. He was working the checkpoint at the Erez Crossings, one of the first to be attacked. He was a quiet kid, modest and humble. And you can see the gentleness in the photos that his family shared with me. I was struck his father was a giant, strong man, and another close friend, even larger, next to him. I felt like a child, and both were just crying, bawling. The father shared that he wakes up each morning and cries for half an hour. Very, very tragically, the father at some point was sharing the difference between his own father dying a natural death and his son dying. And at some point he mentioned that he could see on his father's face after he died that there was a distinction when the spirit was still left within him and when it had gone. And a friend there thought he was going to contrast this with his son. And he said, "Oh, I didn't realize you saw your son's face." And he said, "What face?" He didn't have a head anymore. Another was Netanel Young, 20 years old, made Aliyah from London to fulfill his lifelong dream of defending Israel. He was playful, would always flick his brother's ears, was a DJ on the side. He too loved his many nieces and nephews. His sister at the funeral, I also went there, said that he spent all of his extra time and money on his nieces and nephews. She also said that he had an incredible level of kibud ava'im, of honoring his mother and father, and something that she could only aspire to. One of his brothers asked that someone please, we should spread the word to do one act of kindness in honor of Netanel Young, and then tell that person that they too should do one act of kindness for someone else, and tell them to do another act of kindness in the name of Netanel Young. His brother also shared with me that he was found killed in his army base, which was attacked next to a close army friend. And he said this was quintessential Netanel, that he would not let another friend die alone. For those of you who have joined us over these past 3.5 years for our programs, they tend to be of a high level intellectual nature. Our guests that we have today are certainly some of the brightest people that I've ever known. But today we're going to hear their personal stories and how they're experiencing and responding to the events of the last few days. We have with us Tom Don Danino, who is the Chief Digital and Strategy Officer at Reshet Media, Israel's second biggest news and media outlet. Before that, he was deputy head of the Israeli government's Ministry of Innovation, Science, and Technology. He served for 5 years as a Hamas analyst in the Israeli intelligence and is a graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Business School. Mishi Harman, is a name that many of you probably know, is the founder and host of Israel Story, the most listened to Israeli podcast in the world, which has millions of listeners in more than 190 countries. After his military service, he came to Cambridge, Massachusetts, to Harvard. He also has a master's in archaeology from the other Cambridge and a PhD in history from Hebrew University. He is a serial entrepreneur and a leading activist in Jerusalem. Nim Ravid is a junior at Harvard, studying economics and living in Kirkland House. Before joining the Harvard community, he was an officer in the IDF spokesperson unit and in the Israeli parliament. We also have Shaili Grun, who is a senior also studying economics at Harvard, and she is a veteran of the IDF, where she was an officer. I'm going to begin with our Israelis. Tom, I'll start with you. If you can share a little bit of what the past 4 or 5 days have been like for you, where you are, how it's affecting you personally and also professionally.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, and the stories you were telling about or talking about were very. I mean, it's everything that we've been listening to the last few days. I think it's been, it's funny. I thought that the COVID craziness and growing up in the Intifada and a bunch of different things were kind of the craziest, or going through 9/11 were kind of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my life. And I think the last few days just blew it out of the park. And it really is the worst days I've ever experienced in my life. And it's insane to see a whole country go through that together. I think I don't want to talk too much about the personal stories, just because it's more than I can kind of bear, and it's maybe I'll talk for a second about kind of the first day, the day of. I was at a party not too far from where the incident happened, and so my parents were very worried because they knew I was at an outdoor party, and we started hearing about the rockets, and we were like, oh, maybe it's just another rocket round from Hamas. And then it turned out that it wasn't. But I think maybe I'll say maybe 2 words on kind of my military experience and what that had to do with this. I learned about Hamas, through and through. I learned the organization. I knew every person there. I really, I read up their ideology. And I think the last few days had 2 big surprises for me that I think I didn't know. And I don't think many other that served with me in the intelligence knew back then, and maybe also now. I think the first piece is, the ideology is very fundamentalist, and it's very kind of religious fundamentalist, kind of, messianic, take over the whole land, etc. But the organization has always been very pragmatic, and so I think for many of us, there was this feeling, and I think even the current government had this feeling like, oh, this is an organization we can lure with economic benefits. This is an organization that we can negotiate with. And even though time after time it didn't really work out, we left Gaza in 2005 and kind of they had an open border with Egypt, and we were all hoping that that would be the beginning of a quieter time, and that didn't happen. But still, there was this feeling of there is some rationality and there is some kind of smarts and shared way of discussing things, and that kind of blew up completely this last week. That was number one. And then the second piece that I think surprised me a lot was that they would be able to do what they did. I think our intelligence abilities are very very strong, and knowing what I knew then, I would have never thought that something like this could happen under our noses without figuring it out. I'll make two additional quick points, and then I'll let us move on. But the first piece is on the fact that I think the first few days you saw so many people, and we covered this on my channel and on our news outlets. So many people that came together and started volunteering and helping, and it was really amazing to see. It was a very, very difficult week, but seeing how everyone was trying to chip in from all over the world was amazing. I think the most important thing though that I want to say, especially in this forum, and it really is such an honor, Danny, that you are letting me speak here. But I think and I think this is really pertinent to this group of people, is that many of my Jewish friends, but also non-Jewish, American, Thai, British friends that have written to me the last week, they've been feeling like they're not doing enough, and there's this feeling of heartbreak among Jews and non-Jews that this is happening, and so many messages, and this feeling like you're not doing enough, and people asking me, how do I donate? How do I contribute? And I think it's really important to say that the concern that we've gotten from people all the way up to the President of the United States is heard very loudly here. And it's giving us so much strength. And I mean, we hear it and we really, really need it. President Biden's speech the other day, I was sitting with a group of friends, and then we walked out because we were driving supplies to a friend who's in the reserves, and people were with tears from that speech, because it was this feeling that people see us and hear us and hear our pain, and I think that is more than just it means the world to everyone I know here, everyone who's in Israel, and so I really want to say thank you. It means a lot.
Thank you, Tom. Mishi, how about you personally? And I think you're someone who has a beat on Israeli society in general, maybe better than anyone else, although I'm sure these times are a little bit different. But what have the past few days been like for you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Danny, for including me in this event. It's a time where it's difficult to even know what to say, really, is the truth. For the last 9 months or so, together with many hundreds of thousands of other Israelis, I've been going out into the streets and demonstrating for what I hope Israel will look like in the future, a pluralistic and liberal and democratic and forward-looking and sane home. But I think that as Tom said, at no point during those demonstrations and during these months did we think that we were actually talking about whether there would be a home, and we were thinking of what kind of a home we wanted. I wasn't born yet in 1973. I was born in 1983. But my father, who passed away this year, fought in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and his stories always seemed like the stories from a different era, which was an era that belonged to Israel's past, and he was actually sick on Yom Kippur in 1973, and he was at home and didn't go to synagogue. And my father was Israeli. My mother, who was a relatively new American Ola, with two little kids, my older brother and sister, at home, woke him up when the sirens began, and he said, "Oh, don't worry. It's probably just kids playing on the roof, and triggering some siren." And on Shabbat, my wife woke me up, and our little baby was in bed with us, and she said, "Mishi, there's sirens." And I said, "Oh, don't worry. It's probably just kids on the roof playing." And I think it's too soon to really even have feelings or emotions. It's all a state of shock. I mean, I'm sure, like everyone else on this call, we're surrounded. Every time I open, my phone buzzes, or you open Facebook, or you get an email, you learn of another acquaintance whose family member was killed, or of another person who's kidnapped or missing. And unfortunately, we're talking today on Thursday evening, and while the sort of casualty count has halted now after the initial attacks, I'm afraid that we're still going to see many casualties in the days to come, if there is indeed a large-scale military operation in Gaza. And needless to say, a lot of innocent people on both sides of these devastating events are being killed. And so it's almost we've been guided by, since we interview on our show, we interview a lot of people. We've been consulting psychologists how to talk to people who are going through these kind of traumatic events that completely upend their lives. And one of the surprising things that we've learned is actually not to talk to people about how they feel, because it's an impossible question to ask. It's one can't really say how you feel in the middle of all of this. And the most basic thing that I can say is that I very much hope that we have calmer and quieter days ahead of us, and that cool and sane minds on all sides prevail, and that we not be motivated by sense of revenge and bloodthirst, and that's, I think, all we can hope for at this moment. Where this is something that is the magnitude of these events, I think, is so incredible that it's something that now we're talking, we're within it. But I think that these are events that we're going to understand for decades. I mean, this is something that's going to be part of the way that shapes Israel and shapes our way of life and shapes our way of thinking. In the same way, I mean, we were just in the lead up to this, the entire country was consumed with the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, and trying to that's still an open wound for large parts of the society. And I fear that now everyone who's alive today, this is a defining moment in our life.
One thing that you said there, traditionally, when you go to a house of Shiva, you're not supposed to speak first, and you let the mourners speak. And there's a sense that I think everyone here feels like we're in Shiva, and we'll see what emerges from this conversation. But also to those of you who are joining today, especially I think what Tom said, just your presence, I think, is very meaningful. So thank you. And I know from the Shivas that I went to, there were sort of very, very long moments of no one speaking or saying anything, and then eventually something would emerge or something would come out. I will say there's a lot of food that was being served. You can sort of see the collective effort to comfort ourselves with food. Nim, maybe I'll start with you. This is obviously both a personal moment for you and friends and family back home, and then of course there's the experience of being on college, and I'm sure almost everyone who's on our call today has been following a bit of what's been going on campus. But I want to sort of let you kind of guide where things go. So whatever you want to start with or whatever you want to share.
Thank you, Rabbi Dani. And I really want to thank everyone for joining us. These are tough times of pain, of grief. And I think that the one thing that is empowering me the most and that's supporting me the most is the community, the incredible Jewish community here on campus, the Hillel community. Both Shiley and I are calling from the Hillel building, and we've been here all day long since Saturday. So it's just empowering and amazing to see how we're receiving so much love, and this building is our home. And we're so thankful for that. And I want to thank you. I know that many people on this call have been impacted by these events. So thank you for joining us, for hearing, for learning, for being during these tough times. So as Rabbi Dani said, I'm Nim. I'm a junior now. But I guess I have a bit of an unusual story as a 27-year-old junior. Until 3 years ago, I was an officer in the IDF in the spokesperson unit. And these are tough times for me. 3 of my friends, Iftach, Dor, and Ben, were at the Nova rave and are now missing. In other words, they're either held hostage in Gaza or they're not with us anymore. 4 of my other friends and former colleagues from the IDF were murdered. One guy I played soccer with as a kid, a commander I really looked up to, former colleague, and a family friend. So this is really a difficult time. I have 2 younger siblings, a brother who serves in Shmona Matayim 8200, and a sister who is right now in officer's course. So sending my prayers and love to them as well. I did want to start by sharing a bit of the sentiment on campus. And as I said, we have been receiving enormous support from the Jewish community. And it seems that I think even the greater Jewish community does understand that there is something unusual here. And you see that the support circle has been expanding. And people that usually don't feel as interested or as related to Israel do understand that there is an unusual and really painful moment for both Israel and the Jewish community now following the mass murder in the South. I do want to say that there are a few communities that have been coming together to support us that really inspired me. The first one is the Israel Track community, as some of you guys know. Shiley and I and the rest of the Israelis on campus lead a trip to Israel for non-Jewish students every year. And I'm just inspired by the way some of the people who join us and have seen Israel and have learned, just join our efforts. And we're here with us, supporting, working on initiatives, which is really, really, really powerful. Second community is Jewish students that don't really feel connected usually, but they certainly stepped in under the stretcher with us, supporting us, sending us love. And the third one I think is people that don't really know much about the region, but are very curious to learn. And actually, we have been hosting a lot of events. And even tonight we're hosting just circles in which we're doing something very similar to what we're doing now, sharing with people who are not as related to Israel or to the Jewish community. On the other hand, there are groups on campus that do not recognize this pain, and for example, do not recognize that this was an attack by Hamas, a terror attack, and don't recognize Hamas as a terror organization. And I think that it's very painful. You see that both on social media and when you talk to some people. And I think that this moment, what we want to convey is just the pain and the grief that we experience. I think that the houses, especially the college, have a lot of weight in just sort of shifting how students react. And it was unfortunate to me that many of our fellow students did not think twice and acted in a way that I see as very insensitive when they signed on the PSC statement blaming Israel for the mass killing in the South, and also when they have posted on social media various statements such as that the mass killing of babies did not occur, or some sort of celebrations. So this is very unfortunate, and I think that the university has large role in shaping this discussion on campus. So after sort of outlining what we experienced, I do want to share about three initiatives that the Israeli Jewish community on campus have been leading. The first one is there's been a lot of gatherings. There was a vigil at Harvard by Widener Steps, in which we spoke about our family and friends who were murdered. It was very inspiring to see the community coming together. There were also events at Hillel in which the university leadership joined, including President Gay, Dean Karana, and other deans as well. And there are also great other events in the community, including Harvard, MIT, Tufts, sort of events in which we spoke as well. So it's these events are bringing the community together and the university leadership together as well. And I will continue organizing these because people are in pain. The second effort that I wanted to talk about is an initiative that started here on campus. It's called Survive to Tell, and it started 3 days ago. This is an Instagram page sharing the stories of those who survived the massacre in the South. It was a few of us that came together, including Shiley and I, and just wanted to do something. We saw that our Instagram feed from Israel is full of painful stories that don't really make it across the ocean. So we contacted video editors and a nonprofit in Israel called Israelis that explains Israel's story around the world. And right now we have about 50 students, including about 30 students from Harvard, working on that nonstop. And we've already reached over 4 million views with 75,000 followers. I would recommend anyone on this call to go ahead and watch some of these stories as they tell the stories of those who cannot tell their own stories across the ocean. The last initiative was just after we've seen the PSC statement, we realized that many of the people that have signed it are of groups that don't really have to do with this conflict. And what we thought is that they, and I'm sure many people on this call know how college campuses work. Someone asked them to sign it, and they just went for it because it was, one of their friends or someone they knew. So we actually reached out personally to student leaders, people that are in student groups, and just told them more about, just offered them. We said we're not mad, that we're not upset. We just want to hear what was the reasoning for that. And I've personally spoken to about 6 to 8 groups, and all of them decided to retract their statement. And what I've seen is something very interesting. And I've edited the messages of the retraction message together with this group, because the last thing they want is to offend or to support Hamas, and they didn't even know what Hamas is. Right? There's one of the stories of a group called Gungru. It's a South Asian dance group here on campus, and someone asked them to sign it. They said, "Fine, we'll sign." But after talking to them, they realized the pain they've caused, and they definitely did not want to stand behind that statement. So I think we want to use it as an opportunity to allow our other students on campus to learn from what is happening. So I just want to wrap up by speaking about action. I've been getting through Survive to Tell page, but also just from everyone I've met so far, so many messages of people who want to act. And I think I want to share 5 levels of actions that anyone can take. The first level is just being, and I think that's a part of the reason I'm really thankful for you guys being here, is that especially during this tough times, coming together, hearing, just the presence is very powerful. Second level is learning. I think that it's very relevant for our community here at Harvard. We've been compiling resources, all sort of resources, both from Israeli sites and American sites, and trying to really bring a breadth of perspectives to our campus. And when we tell our friends that this is a part of the obligation, is to just know and learn and read. So I guess that's a second level. The third one is to share the pain and the stories. And I think that Survive to Tell is one way to do it, but there's so many others. And especially during these tough times, I'm calling anyone who can to just share what we are experiencing. The fourth one is to donate. And there's a lot of activities going on. Shiley will talk about it in a second. But I think it's very helpful. And we see also in Israel the call and the need for that. And the fifth and the last one, I think, is to initiate. There are about 150 people from all across the schools now actively trying to help, trying to initiate, and there's so many projects going on. So please, if there's anyone who wants to take a part, please get in touch with us. We would love to receive support in any shape or form. And we understand that it's not a 1 day or a 1 week sort of activity, but rather it's going to take a while, and we'll be here together, strong as a community. So I want to once again grieve for those who died, pray for those who were taken hostage, and send a huge hug to all of those that were impacted and are here with us.
Thank you, Nim. Shiley, it may be tough after you've already heard from 3 other people, but I think I'm sure you have other things to add personally, and also I think Nim is trying to pass some things off to you as well. So how have you been, and what do you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, thank you so much, Danny. Thank you for everyone that spoke. I just want to begin by saying that in these really tough times, and I have my family's from Kfar Aza, so it has been very stressful on a very personal level. The one thing that has really held us Israelis and the students who are impacted is the Jewish community around us. Hillel, the people who went to Israel Trek, and we're happy to send you a video of the vigil. Every night before I go to sleep, I sit and just watch the video of fellow Harvard students singing the Tikva together, and it just warms my heart to see that there's so many people on this campus who do care, and who really care for our safety. I would like to speak a little bit. I saw in the Q&A that someone had asked a little bit about what's going on with what the sentiment on campus. I can say that I'm very involved here. From the first moment this started, we created a group chat got 500 people in the group chat and started sending information on what's happening, called it Attack on Israel, and just held events, held a vigil, and tried to get information out. But at the same time, there's some people here on campus who shockingly are supporting Hamas, and I think that's something that's important to say, which for us, for some of the students, is quite scary to be surrounded by groups of people who have expressed. I'm happy to share some quotes, but have expressed quite clearly support for this organization, and said quite clearly that that long live the resistance, and celebrated it. So it is a very tough environment to be on this campus, especially as someone who has lost friends and my officer in the military these days. So just wanted to say that it's not the easiest. Now, for us, what's been really helpful is action. So a group of us has started, Nim told you about Survive to Tell. Please share it with your friends. We are also working on doing a big fundraise for Kfar Aza and the neighboring villages, and we will be more than happy to share it with you. This is money that will go directly to the communities. I spoke with my cousins who are in Kfar Aza. Their neighbors have been killed. Their other neighbors have been kidnapped. If you saw the videos online circulating about the two parents that were killed in front of their two children, that's their direct neighbors. So we're really trying to help this whole area. The whole region is impacted. All of the villages by the border are impacted, and I know right now a lot of people are asking what they can do and how they can help. So we're more than happy to send out this link, and this will go directly to them. So that's one thing. Another thing is, I think there's been a lot of outside pressure on Harvard. And I think, to be honest, I'll be very honest, it's very hard for students to take responsibility for things, and it's time that they did. And I think it's really valuable that that students understand that what they sign on to has consequences. I would like to ask, though, there are some students that did not know that this was being signed, so they were receiving some personal threats, and someone sent a doxing, like a bus with posters of students' names that were on the organization that signed. So I think the message has gone, like, already. When Bill wrote his Twitter, I think that got the message across. So I think they understand, people here understand. Yeah, I think the main question is, like, how can we as a community help the confused about terror understand what terror is? Yesterday, I'll just tell a personal anecdote. Yesterday there was a house discussion in Dunster. I'm from Dunster House, as some of you know, like some of you who've been to the college specifically know, is a wonderful house by the river. After the events, there was a really heated conversation on our email list, and then we had chosen to do a discussion. The deans invited us all to a discussion, and this was a very difficult discussion. I sat there quietly. I was listening. Some of the students were saying things along the lines of, how can there be moral absolutism in such a situation, especially after 9/11? How can we expect there to be moral absolutism? And then the actions that follow are very difficult. So this was the sentiment. A lot of Muslim students were saying that they were feeling targeted, and so on. And I waited till the end, and then I just looked at everyone and said, if you happen to have been in that festival, you would not be sitting in this room. And I was making it very clear to everyone that Hamas would not ask for their, pronouns and for how they're doing, and they would slaughter them. And I think it was a very important discussion that we need to keep having, because a lot of people don't understand here that what Hamas is. And I think wherever we can create those discussions, that's really useful. So just to summarize, I think the most important thing is if you can donate at this point, I think that's the most important thing. If you can share the Survive to Tell page, that's also valuable.
Thank you, Shaili. Mishi, I'm curious if there's someone who you've had a chance over the last years to interview, who you're holding in your mind, particularly at this point. You've touched and heard from so many lives within Israel. I'm curious if there's one that comes to mind right now. It's in your mind or in your heart.
Well, you know, in the last few days, it's Thursday night here, but this week seems to have been going on forever. So it seems like a much longer stretch of time than the usual week. But in the last few days, we at Israel Story have been thinking about how we want to deal with this. I mean, we're not a news agency. We don't typically we're good at stories where people have had a long time to reflect and to think and to process their emotions and stuff like that. And but we've started interviewing and actually just released a couple of hours ago the first installment of these sort of slivers of life of what it's like to be here at the moment, from stories of people who survived the attacks, and to stories of people whose loved ones are missing or have been kidnapped or have been killed, to, you know, things that are much less in the news because they're sort of not the center of attention, but what it's like to be a mom with, you know, 3 or 4 little kids at home. There's no schools here. There's no ganim. Or what it's like to, you know, stand for the lines on in the blood drives are many hours. When I I arrived at 10 a.m. or something, and it was finally my turn at around 8 p.m. So what it's like for people to be online waiting to give blood for the, you know, and just as Tom was saying, I mean, and people say this, and it almost sounds like a cliche, but it's actually true. It's quite an amazing thing to see the volunteerism of the country, and people coming together, and the power that has, and it's I should say, and even though these are, you know, these are times where complexity is not appreciated. That's the truth. These are times where nuance is we're able to put nuance aside. But I should say that power also has dangerous elements in it. A friend of mine here in the neighborhood, for example, just started a psychological helpline in Arabic and posted it on our neighborhood WhatsApp group, and was bombarded with dozens and dozens of very aggressive messages saying, like, why the hell do we need a helpline in Arabic now? This is a time to concentrate on us Jews and stuff like that. So there's a lot of complexity and stories, even as we as we're going through all of this morning. I was interviewing a 24-year-old woman whose sister was a tatzpitanit. How do you say tatzpitanit? The
Border control, like
women that look at the screens of what we thought were these impenetrable gates and barriers. and she's missing. And the resolve that people have is incredible, really. So if you want to hear that particular story, you can hear that on the Israel Story feed. We just released it, and we'll be releasing these kind of ways in which people are dealing with this all around and all across the country.
Thank you. For those who don't know Israel Story, will be in English, so they can come and understand if you don't speak Hebrew. Tom, you also work in media. I'm curious of what you're able to share, how sort of the conversations taken place there of the responsibility to inform the public, and also sort of a general sense of trauma and not traumatizing people, and making sure that people here don't feel too defeated and have resolve. So what's that been like for you?
It's funny, I have two teams. I have a team that does, so my channel is very known for like trashy Israeli content, Big Brother Israel, Survivor Israel, all that kind of stuff. And that brings in a lot of money. And then I have my news team that writes the news. And the news team has always been scared that I was about to shut them down because they don't make as much money as the other team. And what happened this week really was I had to force all my reality and gossip and entertainment editors and writers to just do a shift into writing about the personal stories and the creating articles about the blood drive places and the donation areas. And the Big Brother Israel website, Israel Instagram page became a page for like posting like missing individuals photos to try to locate them. And so it's been a lot of that. And then all of a sudden, and you're kind of in it, and so you don't really think about you're kind of doing, and so it feels like work. And then all of a sudden you'll watch a video, like the story that came out yesterday of the woman that was almost at the buildings of Gaza with 2 kids, and then at the last minute they let her go back. After she'd seen, all the people that were next to her get shot. And it just kind of kills you, all these stories, each one of them, it's so incredibly sad. And it's also, it's funny, there's a question of how much you should be kind of looking at these photos and posting them, because we want the world to see, and how much of it is kind of damaging, ourselves when we do it. And I think a lot of people are going through a lot of the motions of a lot of additional trauma that happens because you're listening to these horrific stories. I'm sorry, I know I said this before. I don't think we ever thought anything like this would happen. I don't think this level of fundamentalism. People say that Hamas is ISIS. I don't mean to belittle what ISIS did, but they would chop off the heads of 1 or 2 journalists at a time. It was never something like this. It's just, I don't know. I don't think we ever thought that something like this would happen. And so I think, and then if we put that aside, there's just the actual kind of fear of, is there going to be an additional war in the north? I think Hezbollah is having a great time kind of trying to keep a lot of our forces in the north while we try to focus on Gaza. And then I think the thing that I'm mostly concerned about is, I think, to really eradicate Hamas and free Gaza from the clutches of this fundamentalist organization, this will be a painful, couple months. And I think it'll be very painful internally in Israel. I think it'll be difficult outside of Israel. And I think we need to brace ourselves for a few very hard months. But it's something that we'll have to do to rid Gaza of this insane organization. Sorry, I rambled.
That's good. I did want to answer some questions that are coming in about Harvard Hillel's response with regard to physical safety. We are coordinating very closely with the Harvard University Police. So rest assured that we're doing everything that we can to make sure students are safe. And maybe I'll just ask briefly, Nim and Shiley, how do you feel in terms of your physical safety on campus?
Happy to talk about that. So there have been some very difficult things that students have posted on their private Instagram accounts and on SideChat. I don't know if you all know, it's like a communication network where people can post things without their name being written. Among the things, some very anti-Semitic and things that really call for violence, which was quite scary for us. I have to say, I'll just give you an example. There was someone who posted, "I'm proud to be called a terrorist these days." Some really anti-Israel things like let Harvard Hillel burn in hell and things like terrible things. So we were very active about it. I was sitting with the dean, like with the top deans of the university. We also, Harvard Hillel organized a panel for us for this, to speak with the security members and the people involved. And after the panel that Hillel organized, and after, which included HUPD, of course, the Harvard Police and some other members, we felt a lot more safe. It looks like there is a lot of effort being put into to try and ensure our security here of the students. At the same time, as you all know, Harvard is an open space. Like anyone can come here, anyone can do anything. So receiving these types of like seeing how someone who is a Harvard employee yell at a demonstration, intifada, is scary. So what I can say though is that it does feel like the university is taking it very, very seriously, and everything that we raise, they're doing everything. Like it looks like I'm not doing it myself, and as an officer, like I'm always very concerned with, as a veteran, very concerned with safety situations, and in our discussion it looked like they're really trying to take it seriously. But yeah, it's a very scary, this weekend is Shabbat 1000. We're doing a lot of events for students. We're hosting vigils, we're hosting discussions. We're at Harvard Hillel. It's there, the fear is there. And the fact that it took the university some time to condemn the actions of Hamas made it seem like there's a morally ambivalent situation, which was hard for us students. But when Claudine Gay did condemn the actions, we could see some things calm down a little bit, not all, but it did help. It did really help. So that's what we have to share here. Nim, do you want to add anything?
Just really quickly, I'll add, there's another dimension of psychological safety, which I think is really important. And I think it's been severely damaged, and there's a lot that the university can do in order to just make students think twice before they post or before they say, and encourage students to just give hugs, share love. This is a hard time for everyone, not only for the Israelis, also for people on the pro-Palestine side. And we've been talking to the university about it, engaging with student leaders on student groups which are active on campus, releasing more guidelines and refreshing people's understanding of what's the right thing to do when you live in a community through such a crisis. Ensuring that in the houses, the deans make clear that this was a terror action by Hamas, and it's okay to give a hug and say I'm sorry to Israelis in the dining hall. It's not morally ambivalent. So I think that it is important to continue working to ensure the psychological safety, not only of the Israeli students, but I think of the Jewish students and the broader Harvard community as well.
Danny, I had one question for you.
Sure. It looks like the Wi-Fi at Hillel may have just frozen. Because
yeah,
I think both Nim and Shiley have frozen there. So but go ahead.
No, I wanted to say kind of what's it been like for you to be an American here at this time. I think I was shocked that I knew you were supposed to come, but I just assumed that you didn't end up coming, or kind of went back. And I'm wondering if your family and friends, told you to run away, or like how did you how did you end up staying?
Well, first of all, I'm in my father's home here in Jerusalem, so he's happy to have me here, though other family I'm sure would like me home. I would just say in a certain way, there's no place where I'd rather be at this time, just to be with my people. And I'm not a fighter. There's not much that I can do, but I think I can provide a pastoral presence, and that's what I've been trying to do. And for those who are watching here also, if you have someone in particular that is in the hospital or has died, and I'm happy to go to a funeral or a shiva on your behalf. So feel free to email me. But this is where I want to be, and the staff back on campus is doing an extraordinary job with the visuals, working with the different university departments, consulting with HUPD. I mean, really working around the clock. And so I think everything's being handled there in person very well. And for me to be here, and we have alumni who are young alumni who've made Aliyah and are here as Chaylim Bodedim that don't have families here, and so trying to support them also, and they're going to have some time off and deliver food. So I am stuck here. I don't have a flight home, but it feels like the right place to be. I do want to share also as an outro here. So first, I want to thank everyone for joining, and I wish everyone to be safe, Mishi and Tom and Shiley and Nim and everyone here in Israel and back home on campus. But the wedding that I came here for of the alum was scheduled to take place today in the King David Hotel. And the couple are both American. They just wanted to be married in Israel, and they came a week ago, but most of their family and friends could not. And so I thought that the wedding was actually going to be canceled. We were just having a small gathering today in a backyard in Modi'in. And when I arrived, we actually had a wedding, very small. But just as a way of leaving tonight, we're still certainly in a state of shock and a state of mourning. In the end of the Torah with Moshe, on a personal level, he never makes it into the land of Israel, but on a collective level, there is creation yet again. And so we will see creation of our people, of Am Yisrael. And today's wedding, I just want to play this video, I think is just one glimmer of hope for that. So I'll play that here as we go, and just want to wish everyone well. We will have great programming coming up in the coming weeks dealing with this topic. So Nim and Shiley and Tom and Mishi, thank you for joining. Unfortunately, my settings here are not letting me do this without quitting and then reopening. So I will send this video to folks right after this. I'm so sorry. It really is a profound moment, but I do want to share with you all. But wish everyone well. A good evening to those back on the East Coast. A good night to Tom and to Mishi. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Danny.